But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
What's the purpose of money? You spend, or many of us spend, half or more than half of our adult waking hours engaged in activity to earn money. Why? Many of us will apply for new jobs, apply for promotions, work to get bonuses in order to accumulate more money. And that's good. I think you should do that. But if you're going to spend the best and most productive years of your life and so many waking hours of your life in the pursuit of earning money, gaining money, I think you owe it to yourself to have a pretty good answer to this question. In your life, what's the purpose of money? Or maybe another way to ask the same question would be, what does money mean to you? What does money represent in your life? For some of us, what money represents is security. And you think, if I have enough money, finally I'll be secure, I'll be safe, I'll be confident. Maybe for you, money represents significance. And if you can acquire enough money, you'll feel like somebody important in the world. Maybe for you, what money represents is fun or pleasure. Maybe for you, what money represents is comfort and luxury and ease. What does money mean to you? Now, you're not going to share this answer with anyone, so you can be honest with yourself. I mean, it might be interesting to talk about on the drive home. So go beyond the basic answer of, well, the purpose of money is to meet my needs. Okay, we're Americans. You probably got that done pretty early on in your work week. So what's the purpose of money in your life? What does it mean to you? Why do you hope to get more of it? I think those are good questions to ask, and more important questions for you to have an answer for. Now today, if you haven't caught on yet, I'm going to talk about money. Next week too, just to warn you. And the reason why I'm going to warn you on the front end that I'm talking about money is because I want you to have a chance to dig your trenches and get your shields up, and preachers coming after my money. I'm in defensive position. Some of you are already doing your inner Captain America with the shield, and you're going to get down low, and it's not going to work on me, preacher. And I just want you to know that, to be fair, the church has often done a terrible job when it comes to money. And in fact, has oftentimes misrepresented God when it comes to money. So I know if I were sitting in your chair, my shields would be way up. So if that's where you are, hey, that's where I would be too. I totally respect that. So that's why I'm letting you know on the front end, I'm talking about money. But you can lower your shields because we literally already had the offering, okay? Even if I emotionally manipulate you, you already missed the window. So, okay, we're safe for today anyway, okay? Watch out for next week. But for today, we're safe to talk about money. You can't give any more today. But I do want you to know why I'm going to talk about money when the church has often done a terrible job, and that's our fault when it comes to money. Number one reason why I'm going to talk about money is because Jesus talked about money. And in fact, he talked about money quite a bit. And the reason why that matters to us, if you're new to church or new to Christianity, what you should know is that to be a Christian isn't to follow rules or to adopt a certain behavioral ethic. To be a Christian is to trust Jesus. That's all it means to be a Christian. So I believe Jesus lived for me, he died for me, he rose on the third day. He died on a cross for my sins, he forgave my sins. I trust him with my eternity. I trust him for grace. I trust him for forgiveness. And because of that, he invites you to follow him. It's a relational dynamic, not an obedience or behavioral dynamic. And Jesus, Christians believe, loves us because he gave his life for us. So if he says something, it's because he cares about you. He wants you to thrive, and he wants you to lead a fully flourishing life. And he knows money is a big part of that, of living a flourishing life. So Jesus talked about money all the time. In fact, of all the topics Jesus brought up, there's only one topic he talked about more than money, and that was the kingdom of heaven. He talked about the kingdom of heaven all the time. Number two, money. I mean, more than hell and angels and demons and things like that, he talked about wealth. So if we want to follow Jesus, for those of us who are Christians, we do need to pay attention to what he had to say about money. So that's the first reason why we're talking about it. The second reason why we're going to talk about it is because culture isn't exactly helping us in this area. See, culture is pushing us all in a certain direction when it comes to money. And have you stopped to consider if that's a good direction? Think of it this way. Here's a third question. When you think about your finances, your bills, your paycheck, your investments, all your financial reality, when you think about your finances, what is your primary emotional reaction? Is that emotion a positive one or a negative one? Perhaps the direction culture pushes us in when it comes to finances isn't a positive one. Because money, Jesus said, is a blessing from God, and God gives blessings because he loves you. So if God has a gift to share with you and our response is fear, if God has a gift to share with you and our response is anxiety, if our response is worry or concern, maybe, I don't want to be rude, but maybe we're not approaching it in a healthy way. Because the appropriate way to respond to a gift is to say, wow, that's awesome, thank you. And have thankfulness and joy in our hearts. So maybe we're not getting this right, so we're going to see what Jesus had to say about the topic of money. And the third reason why I'm going to talk about it today and next week, again, just in case you want to skip, you have a good reason why. Preacher's talking about money. The reason why is because finances are important. Money is important. This is a major part of your life. You spend more of your time on earth accumulating, earning, and spending money than any other activity. You want to get this right. And God wants you to get it right because it matters. So because of that reason, we're going to see what Jesus had to say about money. And today, to do that, we're going to look at a fascinating parable that Jesus told. If you're new to the Bible, sometimes when Jesus taught, he would tell parables. They're stories that he made up. They never actually happened, but he wanted to illustrate a point. And sometimes a story is a neutral way to do that, because when it comes to matters of faith and personal things like that, if I say something directly to you, it can be emotional, or shields can go up, or there's baggage. But if there's just a story and it's third party and we're just watching it unfold, we can look at it in a more emotionally neutral way and be more objective. So sometimes Jesus would do that. Sometimes he spoke to people directly. Other times he said, well, let me tell you a story to explain the point. And today we're going to look at one of those stories, or one of those parables. And in the stories of Jesus, in the parables of Jesus, usually somebody represents God and usually somebody represents us. And in this parable, he says something so stunning about God that if you've never heard it, and this is one that I'm sure most of us haven't, it's something that bends our categories and like, wait a minute, I don't think God would act that way, and I don't think God would ever say that. But Jesus is teaching us something important when it comes to money and when it comes to God. Now, when you're reading the Bible, one of the most important things to understand is the context into which something was spoken. So if Jesus is telling a parable, He's in a specific time, in a specific place, with a specific audience, with a specific reason to tell the parable. He's trying to make a point to somebody. So today the parable we're going to look at is in Luke chapter 16. Now, Luke chapter 16 follows something. Do you know what Luke 16 follows? Luke chapter 15, right? Okay. My seminary, thanks, Mom. My seminary education paying dividends, right? About Luke 15, Jesus told a series of 3 very famous parables. You've probably heard of at least one of them. He told a parable of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son, or a prodigal son. He said, once there was a man, a shepherd, who lost one sheep, so there were 99 secure. He went and found the lost one, and when he found it, he brought it home rejoicing. That's how God feels when one sinner repents and comes home to him. Then he told a second one. There's one woman who had 10 coins. She lost one. She swept the house until she found it. And when she found it, she was overjoyed. That's how God feels when one lost person comes back to him. And then he ups the ante and he tells a story about a prodigal son, a son who went to his dad and said, Dad, I'm waiting around for you to die so I can get your stuff. I'm tired of waiting. Can you just give me half the stuff now and I'll be on my way? The father gives it to him. He goes home, burns through it all, wastes it all, becomes destitute, says maybe my dad will give me a job because he was always a fair man, goes home, asks for a job. The father, when he sees his son coming home, is overjoyed and welcomes him back, not as a hired hand, but as a dearly loved son. Jesus was saying, whenever one sinner repents, when one person turns to God, all of heaven throws a party, and that's what matters to God. That's what warms God's heart. And right on the heels of that, before anybody can ask any questions, before anyone can make any statements, Jesus launches right into a 4th parable, and that's what we have in Luke chapter 16. Now, the idea of this parable is so important. I'm going to give you the big idea up front. In your program, if you're taking notes, you have places to fill in some blanks. Here's the big idea we're going to cover today. So just so you know what to expect, in case I get boring and you start daydreaming, you still got the big idea. Money is not the meaning of life, but it can be a means to a meaningful life. What Jesus intended to teach is that money is not the meaning of life. And you already know that part is true, right? I mean, someone can be exceptionally wealthy and still lead a meaningless life. That is possible. So that tells us that money is not the meaning of life, but it can be leveraged, it can be used as a means to a meaningful life. Money can be used as a means to a productive end. Now, when something becomes a meaning to an end, that's what makes it valuable all of a sudden. Okay, think about your car. Your car has value. Now, it might be a fast car. It might be able to tow a lot of stuff. It might be able to go off-road. It might have all the accessories and luxuries you can cram into a car. But your car has value only to the degree that it is a means to an end, and that end is transportation, because no matter what kind of car you have, if it broke down this afternoon, the value of your car plummets, because your car has value because it is a means to an end. And don't write me the nasty gram later for the one person whose car breaks down this afternoon. That's not on me, okay? Your life only has value if it is a means to an end. Think about it. Imagine you're at a funeral and someone leans over to you and says, that guy was all about himself. Is that a compliment? Because when a life is lived as if I am the end, that becomes a meaningless life, a life without meaning or purpose or value. But when you go to a funeral and person after person stands up and says, they were always there for me, they loved me, they were so kind to me, they were there when I needed them. When someone's life becomes a mean to an end that is bigger than self, that's a life that has value. Something only has value when it is willing to become a means to an end. And the same thing is true of your money. If you treat your money as if it is the end, it's going to be meaningless. But if you learn to leverage your money as a means to a more important end, suddenly your money becomes very, very valuable. Now, wherever you're at in terms of God, wherever you're at in terms of Christianity, this is just true. And if you're not a Christian, you can go home and figure out what to do with this. You can go home and figure out, okay, how do I want to leverage my money as a means to something that's bigger than just me? From here on out, I'm going to give you the Jesus answer to that question. From here on out, I'm going to share with you what Jesus taught his followers about how to leverage your wealth as a means to a more meaningful end. And that's what actually makes your money even more valuable, because it can add meaning to your life. So he finishes Luke 15. He tells the parable of the prodigal son. He tells us what makes God throw a celebration in heaven. And from there, he launches right into Luke chapter 16, verse 1. Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So, Jesus sets up this story. Once upon a time, there was a man of exceptional wealth. He was so wealthy, he could not manage all of his businesses and financial resources and properties by himself, so he hired a manager. In our world, this would be something of a CEO with a CFO kind of coming together and organizing and running all these businesses in all his interests, and kind of like a mutual fund investor at the same time. I'm just overseeing everything. None of it's mine. It's all this rich man's. He's my boss, but this manager had the legal and ethical responsibility to represent his boss in all of his interests. He could transact for him, he could buy and sell for him, he could trade for him, but it wasn't his stuff. He was the manager. The boss owned all this stuff, so he had to represent the interest of the rich man. Now, right out of the gate, we can probably figure out who in this parable represents God and who represents us. The rich man represents God. If there's ever somebody in charge in a parable, it's usually God, in case you're wondering. And the manager represents us, which right out of the gate, Jesus is saying something that rubs some of us the wrong way. And what he's saying is all your stuff, all your wealth, everything that you have, it's not actually yours. It belongs to someone else, and you have been made the manager who can legally transact and represent the manager, but you have full legal right to do whatever you want with what is under your management. Now, the reason why that rubs some of us the wrong way is you say, Jason, oh no, not me. I started with nothing, and I clawed my way to success, and I earned every dollar I have. Now, I don't know about you. I have never met a Powerball winner. Have you? I have never met the person who inherited millions of dollars from their rich family's estate. Have you? Maybe one. You don't like that guy, do you? Right? Everyone I know had to earn their money the hard way. That's all I'm saying. That's true of you. And if you won the Powerball, I want to see you right here after the service in front of the stage. For the rest of us, of course you earned your money. How else are you going to get money than by working hard, going to school, starting a business, taking a risk? That's how you earn money. What Jesus would say is, so while you worked hard to earn it, you worked hard to earn it with things that do not belong to you or did not originate with you. Think of some of the things you need to earn money. Number one, you need to be alive. That's very helpful when it comes to earning money. Did you give yourself life? Nope. Number two, you need health to earn money. Some of us in the room don't have the health to earn money, and you, more than any of us, recognize how true that is. If you don't have health, you can't earn money, and you did not give yourself health. Third thing you need is the opportunity. You were born in America. What if you were born in Peru or Colombia or Madagascar? Would you have the same money you have now? What if you were born in America, but it was the 17th century instead of the 20th or the 21st century? Would you have the same money you have now? The rich man, the master, God said, you're going to live here, you're going to live now, and you're going to manage some of my resources. Those are not things that you earned for yourself. Yes, you worked hard. People in the 17th century in America worked hard. People today in Madagascar work hard. But you've been given more by the master. That's not something to feel guilty about. That's not something to feel ashamed of. That's reality, and we want to deal with reality. If you're going to understand in your life what's the purpose of money and what does money mean to me, we have to deal with the facts. So Jesus sets up the parable, and he says, here's the situation. There's this rich man, and there's this manager. The problem is the manager is not doing a good job. The manager is wasting his possessions, the wealthy man's possessions. So that's the tension, the opening tension Jesus sets up in this story. Here's what happens. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Hey, I found out you are being wasteful with my wealth, with my business opportunities, with my partnerships. You're fired. Go get the books, bring me the books, turn them in, give me your keys and badge, and then we're going to walk you out of the building because you have been wasteful with what I have entrusted to your care. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. So he's like, now what do I do? I'm not blue collar. I kind of missed that window. I'm getting older. I can't do manual labor anymore. And who's going to give me a job now? Once everyone hears that I was fired because I was wasting my master's possessions, wasting his wealth, not doing a good job with his business opportunities, nobody's going to give me a job. What am I going to do? And then it comes to him. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. I know exactly what to do so that when I walk down the street, people won't look at me out of the corner of their eye. They'll celebrate me. I know what to do so that my reputation isn't mud. My reputation is celebrated, and people kick open doors of access to me, and they will throw parties for me, and they will offer me jobs, and they will be so thankful for me. I know exactly what to do to land on my feet in this situation. So here's what he does. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? He says, not even my money. I have nothing to do with this, but you owe my master some money. You owe my boss some money. How much do you owe him? 800 gallons of olive oil, he replied. Imagine trying to pay that back to the bank. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly. Make it quick because I don't have much time. I've got to turn these books in the morning. Sit down quickly because I have a very limited amount of time and I have a very limited amount of remaining influence. So quick, hurry up, sit down, cut your bill in half. We'll close out this account. Really? You mean it? You're just going to cut my bill in half? Yeah, that'll just let me close the books and, we'll start a new year and we both win. Really? Yeah, I mean it. Cut it in half. Make it 400. Well, wow. Thank you. Hey, if you ever need anything, you just let me know. I'll keep that in mind. Then he asked the second, and how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. Are you serious? I'm serious. Make it 800. Wow. Hey, if you ever need anything, you just give me a call. I might be calling you sooner than you think, right? So he does this with each one of his master's debtors. He cuts their bills in halves. He shaves off what they owe so that they are making new friendships with this guy. They all of a sudden love this manager. Now, how does the master respond? The master commended the dishonest manager, to which we say, oh, whoa, Jesus, hold on. I didn't go to Sunday school, but I know God likes you to be honest and tell the truth. Isn't the master supposed to be angry at the manager? Isn't the master supposed to blow a head gasket because his wealth was just squandered by this manager and he was already fired? He was on his way out the door. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. The master says, well played. Wow. That was brilliant, what you just did right there. I don't like it, but that was brilliant because with this last little bit of legal ability you had to represent me, you just made your future secure. With this last little bit of time you had to represent me, you just made lots of new friends. Are the job offers rolling in yet? Or did they plan the celebration party for you yet? They should have, because you were shrewd. You were smart. You were sneaky. You leveraged your situation that you had to your full future advantage. I got to hand it to you, buddy. Well played. Well played. And Jesus backs out of the story and he says this. For the people of this world, and all he means is people who aren't my followers, people who don't trust me, people I don't have a relationship with them, just people of this world, are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. In other words, he said, people who live their lives as if all there is to life is this life. People who live this life as in you're born and then you die, so you have to make the most of it. People who live their lives as if there's nothing beyond the grave. People who live their lives saying, I am the end. I am the purpose. The money is for me. People who answer the question, what's the purpose of money? So I can have more. People who live just for this world, Jesus says in frustration, they're leveraging their opportunities for their purpose much better than my people are. See, my people believe you're born and then you die and then eternity kicks in and off we go. And this is just a sliver of the time compared to forever, but my people aren't leveraging their limited time and resources as smart as the people who just live for this life are leveraging their time and their resources. Jesus just taught these parables about here's what breaks the Father's heart and here's what makes the Father throw a party in heaven. It's when one sinner turns to God. And God's already thrown a party for you. And now, He's given you this limited time, this limited money, these limited opportunities. It's not your money. It's God's money. It's God's wealth. It's God's opportunities. And He's given it to you to invest to make a difference. He continues. I tell you, use worldly wealth. Whoa, Jesus. Worldly wealth? What other kind of wealth is there? Hold on. Use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves so that when it is gone, do you know when your money is gone? That'll happen at one of two times. Your money will be gone either when you die or before then. Okay, so when it's gone, you're welcome. You will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Jesus said, you have this limited time, and it's not yours, it's going to be gone. But you can invest your limited time and opportunities like this shrewd manager did in a way that when you get to heaven, do you know what will be waiting there? Open doors of people celebrating you and lining up to thank you. People lining up to say, thank you because I know you've never met me, but when you invested your resources to make a difference in God's kingdom because of that investment, the gospel came to me and I heard about Jesus and I heard about His love for me and I put my trust in Him and that changed my eternity because of what you did. Thank you for what you did for me. Jesus says you can make that kind of difference. That's why He told this parable of the shrewd manager. You've got all these resources at your disposal to use in a way that makes your future even better. So here's what Jesus is getting at here. Money is a means, eternity is the end. Money is a means, eternity is the end. Leverage your worldly wealth for an eternal end. Leverage your temporary wealth to make an eternal difference. Now, here's the question you need to wrestle with. All of us need to wrestle with on our own. How can I leverage my money as a means to a meaningful life? That's the question you should have an answer to in your life. And again, if you're not a Christian, okay, if you just want to throw out the God part completely, you should still have an answer to this question because if the only purpose of earning money is to have money, that's not a very meaningful life. I think you should have an answer to this question. But for those of us who are followers of Jesus, how am I leveraging my money as a means to make an eternal difference in people's lives? Now, there's dozens of ways to answer this question. For the balance of our time, we're talking very specifically about how we as a church are answering this question. And if we're not your church, this doesn't apply to you. This only applies to people who say, Hope is my church. I believe in the vision. I'm in with this church. Here's how we as a church are doing this. 11 months ago, we started the Second Stage Initiative. From December of 2018, last year, until December of 2020, what we are doing as a church is we are in the middle of a 2-year generosity initiative in order to, in a unique and first time in our history, unparalleled way of making an eternal difference in people's lives. And from December 2018 to December 2020, Every single dollar that anybody gives to Hope at any time during this period is going to accomplish 3 goals. Number one, we're getting more ministry done than ever before. Our church is bigger than it's ever been. We're serving more people than we've ever served. Things are moving forward like never before. That's the one thing that's happening with every dollar donated. The second thing is we are preparing to build our own facility so that we can take the next step as a church, that we can get to the next stage as a church. In part one, I told you a little bit about how this building is shaping up. We'll have a little bit more about that next week as well, but we're getting close to finishing the rezoning process on the land so we can move forward as a church. So every dollar, part of it goes to that. And the third thing that every dollar does at Hope Church is it is donated to charities in our community that are improving the quality of people's lives. And in fact, we do that every Christmas. We write those big checks, and because your generosity has been so big this year, it's looking like we'll be able to give more away than we've ever given before to our partner charities in our area, and we are so excited to be able to practice that kind of generosity and make our community a better place. So thank you for what you do with that. But this is a very unique opportunity, but I wanted to let you know what's coming up next week at Hope Church. Next week, we're having a recommitment Sunday. Last year during second stage, we asked everyone who considers Hope to be their church, would you turn in a card after you've gone home, you've prayed about it, you've answered the question, what does God want my level of generosity to look like? I didn't ask any of you to do anything except to go home and ask God what your level of generosity should look like. And for the first time in our history, we had you write that commitment on a card and turn it in. The reason why we did that was because when you're talking building a building, you want your budget to be tight, okay? So we wanted to make sure we can make good plans. That's why we asked people to make commitments for this project. Some of you weren't here. And we didn't want you to miss out on the opportunity to invest in people's eternity. So if you weren't around last year, next week or the couple weeks after, you can still turn these in. You can say, I want to jump in. You can turn in this card, you say, count me in, I want to make a commitment, I want to jump in and make a difference with this church. For others of us, you can say, yep, I'm on track, I'm doing my thing, or maybe something in your world changed and your number should be different. I don't know. That's between you and God. We're going to turn those in next week and make a difference. But the reason why I'm inviting you to be part of this, and the reason why that we're talking about this again, even though we talked about it last October, is for this simple reason. Stories are better than stuff. Yesterday, in my news feed, fascinating article scrolled across my screens about the scientific relationship between money and satisfaction in life. Now, I'd already had this whole sermon prepared, and all of a sudden this article comes up, and I'm like, this is fascinating. So the article was about research done by Daniel Gilbert of Harvard University, trying to understand the scientific connections between what we do with our money, rich, poor, however much you have, and your overall satisfaction and happiness in life. And what they found shouldn't surprise anyone. Top 2 findings. Number 1, people who are happy with their money buy fewer material goods and use their money to buy more experiences. Number 2, people who are happy when it comes to money use their money to make other people's lives better. Top 2 findings. Less material goods, more experiences. Use your money to make other people's lives better. That's just what the science tells us. That's just what Jesus told us. And that's what we're doing through the Second Stage Initiative, because every time you give a single dollar, when you walk into that building we have in the future, and when you see baptisms, and when you hear stories of lives and eternities being changed, and when you see little children bursting out of Kids Connect with huge smiles on their faces, running up to their parents because some loving people just showed them the love of their Father in heaven, you will know I was part of that story, and you will get to experience that. You will get to experience what that looks like in our generation, and you will make a multi-generational difference in our community and beyond as this becomes a platform to reach into other communities and into the digital space as well. That's the kind of opportunity we have to gain future experiences for ourselves and others and make other people's lives better. And we don't want you to miss out. In fact, we're going to introduce you to a family here at Hope Church. They missed Second Stage because they started coming to Hope this calendar year. So we want to tell you about their story.
My name is Jonathan Fisher, and this is my lovely wife, Rachel Fisher. We had been not really actively going to church for a little bit.
We had been going to different churches and kind of seeing what worked for us and hadn't really committed to anything, and decided that we needed to change that. And so at the beginning of the year we were like, let's try some churches. Let's really pick something that we're gonna go to and decide if it's our church.
And the first thing that I would say that really brought us was the Kids Connect.
The first week we brought the kids in with us, and we were like, all right, you guys have to be quiet, we're trying to listen, and we're like, brought crayon. I mean, it was this whole thing, and I didn't hear a word. I had no idea what happened up there, because I was paying attention to my kids. And then we were leaving, and Kathy goes,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
do your kids want to come see where they could play next week?
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, sure. They played for 15 minutes. We talked to Kathy. When we picked up the kids the second time, so they went right in, played. We came back and picked them up, and Olivia said, can I come back tomorrow? And I was like, okay, yeah. So it works for our kids, it works for us. I mean, literally, we went twice, and then we're kind of sold.
Everyone has their own way of connecting, and for me, music is definitely one of the big things. And to come in and see the type of, not production, but effort that's being put in to usher in the type of worship. So the music was a huge part for me. And then Rachel is Miss Study. She loves taking notes.
I love the notes. I love that I
so
can write.
When we opened up that first card and there was the blank spots, oh, she was so pumped. She was like,
a pen.
Oh.
Give me a pen.
Yes. So
and I don't have kids, so I can actually write.
Right. The kind of initial second stage launch happened before we really, I think it ended the week before we started coming. And so we really didn't get to be a part of it. And so I initially asked what it was because I wanted one of the t-shirts. And I'm like, those t-shirts are cool. What is this second stage so I could get one? I really want one of those t-shirts.
We kind of started everything really, really fast. And then I kept hearing second stage. And I'm like, no, okay. And didn't really understand what it was. But then kind of was like, oh, we want a building, we want a home, we want to, take it to the next level, essentially. In a nutshell, I think it's what can you do to help propel the vision of hope? We didn't give for the first couple weeks, and then once I started knowing people and we're going to group, I'm like, we really need to make sure that we're being generous towards helping out what we really truly believe in. I'm a little ashamed to admit it took us so long to talk about it and get to that point, but part of the reason we felt so ready to give is that every Sunday we weren't pressured to give. There was such this we take a donation, but if this isn't your church or you don't believe in what we're doing, don't just give us money because you feel like you have to give us money. So I loved that we weren't pressured to give. It was finally us going, we want to support them. We want to give to the cause. We want to be part of what's happening. And that was when we really okay, what can we do and how can we do it? Right. When you finally just give all in that you're going to be a part of it, there's just this really great sense of belonging and peace that comes with it that makes you really want to see it grow. Simply just see what's around you each week at group or each week on Sundays. And when you finally truly, see all the different things of what Second Stage can do, it really is cool to look at, wow, I was a part of that, I helped with that. These are my pizza socks.
I see that.
Pizza,
That makes me very
golf, family, God, all of my favorite things.
I love it.
What's that?
You said pizza first.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, taking a half day tomorrow.
For what?
Playing golf with my dad. How are we doing so far? Not good. This is bad. Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Some people have such a hard time being themselves on camera. Get all stiff. Rachel said something interesting in their story, and she said how she appreciates the fact that, hey, if we've always said, if we're not your church, we don't expect you to support us financially. This church has always been supported by people who say, no, this is my church, I'm part of it. But I would be clear on something right now. I want you to give money to Hope Church, just to be clear. But here's why. The United Way has zero problem asking you to give them money. And last year, people donated almost $4 billion to the United Way. Do you know why? So that this year, the United Way could advance their causes by about $4 billion. That's great. The reason why I want you to give right now, at this critical time in our history to Hope Church, isn't just so that we can do good next year. This is an unprecedented opportunity to do good for generations and decades to come, and to use some of your money as a means to an eternal end. And that's what it looks like to emulate and follow Jesus. See, Jesus is the Son of God, yet though he was rich for your sakes, he became poor. See, Jesus as the Son of God literally is the end. Jesus alone could say, life is really about me. I made it, I started it, I'm God, it is all about me. And what did the one who is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, do? He humbled himself to become a means to an end. He humbled himself and said, because of you, for the sake of your salvation, for the sake of your eternity, I'm going to make my life a means to that end. And that's why we value Jesus so much, because even though he is the end, he was willing to become a means to an end, and he invites us every day of our lives to make our lives a means to an eternal end. After Jesus finished the parable, he made these final comments. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? Right now, however much you accumulate, compared to eternity, it's very little. It doesn't matter how successful you become, compared to eternity, it's very little. See, money is just not a means to an end. Jesus says it's a test. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with your limited time and your limited resources to make an eternal difference? So this week, I hope you'll go home and you reflect on Jesus' words so that you can come back next week with an answer to that question, with your answer to the question. How do I make my money a means to a more meaningful end? We'll wrap up next week. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you that we have this teaching from Jesus. Thank you for this wisdom that our world doesn't give us when it comes to handling wealth and handling money. Forgive us for going along with culture and acting as if we are the end and life is all about us, and we take this self-centered approach to life. Instead, help us be more like you. Help our lives become means to an end so that we can truly be people who have lives that are filled with value for others. I ask for your blessing on our church as we move forward, that our efforts, they're just our efforts. We need you to show up and bless them and make them something glorious in your name. We ask you to do that, Jesus. Amen.